Hello and welcome to Football for the Fans, where the fans come for everything football. Today I want to talk about Manchester City and the recent controversy surrounding them. This is an off-the-cuff video. I haven't I have things written down, but I don't have a set script to read. So my voice will sound a bit different, and I will pace myself a bit differently, and we will talk about something off the cuff, things that I just want to talk about and discuss, and hope to get a reaction from everyone in the comment section. So as I said, look, this is a different style of video. I'd encourage you to put this on in the background because I'm not going to use any visuals at all. It'll just stay as the 40F background. So go and make your breakfast, have your headphones plugged in, listen on the way to work, on the way to football. Just listen today, and then we can talk about it later. Let's get into it. If you've missed what's happened recently, Manchester City have been punished by UEFA, which is the European governing body of football. And their punishment is 2 years banned from the Champions League, from the Europa League, anything European Club League related. And also they've been given a £30 million fine, or 33 million euros, whatever it is. Either way, it's a reasonable sum of money for a club like Manchester City. Even for a club like Manchester City, I should say. And what it means is, actually, what I should say is what it's come from is a ban from Financial Fair Play, so FFP, so Financial Fair Play, which is designed and was implemented a decade ago to prevent too much disparity between the best clubs and the lesser clubs, the big clubs, for example, the top six in the Premier League, and the smaller clubs. Financial fair play basically means, and a lot of the reason why people have a problem with it, if you're maybe a smaller club supporter, is that the amount of money that you are permitted legally to spend from these FFP regulations is determined by how much money you actually make from revenue. So, for example, Manchester United, on the other hand, the crosstown rivals of City, are a huge brand across the world, whether it be in Asia, whether it be in Europe, whether it be in America. It is a known brand, and they generate a lot of money, and so they are permitted to spend more money. I'm not sure what that figure is, but the reason why it's deemed not as fair as one might think is because they make more money, they can spend more money. Whereas a club like West Ham, Sheffield United, another small club, or smaller relatively club, isn't as marketable or as popular in countries such as Australia, or in other Asian countries, or in America, because it's not known. And that's just fact. These big clubs have been around for a while and have generated huge amounts of money. Chevrolet obviously sponsors Manchester United, so they've become big in America. Manchester City don't have that luxury. Manchester City have a lot of money. They don't have that luxury of being a massive brand. I live in Australia, as you might be able to tell, and what I can assure you, you will see 10 Manchester United jerseys, and to be honest, you don't see that many. Well, actually, you don't see that many Manchester City jerseys at all, if any. I've actually seen more Leicester City fans with Mahrez on the back than Manchester City, which is funny because he plays for City now, Manchester City now. Anyway, back to the point. So, because of that, Manchester City are permitted to spend less money than other big six clubs: Arsenal, Spurs, Manchester United, Chelsea, and Liverpool, of course. And so what that means is that they actually can't compete as much when it comes to wages, buying players with transfer sums, because they don't make as much, which is weird. But that's what happens when you sort of aren't a massive club until you have oil tycoons take over your company. The difference between them and Chelsea is that Chelsea were a big club. and they became a bigger club. Anyway, back to the point. Why are Manchester City punished? Manchester City have been punished because they have spent more money than they are permitted to spend. And how they have done that is by taking their owner, who owns Etihad, or owns a partial amount of Etihad Airways, their main sponsor. So, for example, they play in the Etihad Stadium, you know. So the owner, Sheikh Mansour, has actually been taking the sponsorships of Manchester City and basically pumping his own money into it, and essentially creating a fake sum of money that was not allowed, which seems confusing when you think about it, but really what he's done is the owner has essentially mucked around with the sponsorship because he has a stake in it and has given his club more money to spend. And they did. And then between 2012 and 2016, which is a 4-year period in which they won 2 league titles, one was the Aguero moment and the other was Steven Gerrard slipping. 2012 and 2014, those years. They won 2 league titles during that time. And some people have suggested that the signings of Wilfred Boney, Stefan Jovetic, but particularly Wilfred Boney was the one that tipped it over the edge. I'm not sure, because when you spend 78 million and 60 million on De Bruyne and other people and Sterling in the same window, it makes you wonder what really did it. Anyway, Manchester City have been spending too much, and their owner has been pumping money in beyond what is allowed. It's illegal, and so this has been taken to court, and they've been given that 2-year ban, and they've been fined 30 million euros. The problem with all of this is that Manchester City players and staff, the coach, the manager at the times, the respective times, I would suggest strongly, particularly the players who were the ones performing on the pitch week in, week out to win those league titles, had absolutely zilch, nothing to do with this illegal actions. Literally nothing at all. They don't control what money comes into the club. They don't control sponsors. And the problem is, this could not be the final punishment that Manchester City face. The Premier League themselves, the association of the Premier League, could still fine them. And that could include potentially deducting them from their 2 league titles, which is harsh. I would suggest upon the players that achieved that, because those players had nothing to do with the illegalities that happened. In saying that, Manchester City should absolutely be punished for what they've done. Unfortunately, you can't just punish a select amount of backroom staff or owners of Manchester City. You can't. You have to punish the club as a whole, because what they've done has affected the club. I was watching the True Geordie channel. If you know Brian and Loris, I really look up to those guys. They were talking about this morning, about how, imagine being one of those teams that were relegated that year and now could be in a slump at the bottom of the Premier League. For example, maybe a Sunderland, at the bottom of a League One or the Championship, or even lower, within that 2012 to 2016 period, who lost 2 games against an allegedly cheating Manchester City team. There's a lot of variables about this that can really, really hurt Manchester City. And what's going to happen now, which is the second thing that I sort of want to go into, is what this is going to mean for Manchester City in terms of the next couple of years if this punishment is to be upheld. So what I mean by if this punishment stands is that UEFA as a company, as a organisation, have almost nothing financially compared to that of Manchester City or any other big club. They have been known to buckle under the weight of other punishments that they've dealt out in the past. For example, AC Milan, for example, Manchester City, for example, Chelsea just this season. And they've had to pull back because they literally can't keep up with the lawyers that Manchester City will be able to employ. They won't be able to keep up with the time in court. They can't afford it. Which brings me on to my second issue, which is what happens to Manchester City if this ban stays, if this ban remains upon Manchester City. Here's what I think happens. You will lose, Manchester City fans, and I'm sorry to say this, you will lose a couple of players. I still think, despite what Pep Guardiola has said, including I will stay until even if we get dropped down into League 2, I don't think that's true. I think Manchester City would be lucky to hold on to their best players, namely Kevin De Bruyne, namely Raheem Sterling, Bernardo Silva, but you might keep Otamendi if that's what you want, because I think he's too old to be going anywhere, and I think he'll see out his contract. Anyway, if this ban remains, which unfortunately I don't think it will, even though you deserve to be punished, you will lose a whole bunch of players. Your revenue will actually decrease, which means that by FFP regulations you'll be able to spend less, and you will struggle to continue attracting players. And that is not just financially, but that is the fact that you don't have the appeal of the Champions League. Kevin De Bruyne at 28, 29 years old cannot miss out on Champions League football. Raheem Sterling, coming into the peak of his powers, cannot miss out on Champions League football. Bernardo Silva cannot miss out on Champions League football. That is a fact. And the way that you've been demolished in the league this year so far would suggest that this team isn't necessarily at its strongest point as a togetherness as a group. And I would suggest that if this ban remains, you will lose a lot of players, which means you'll make less money because you already don't make enough. Your stadium attendances will go down because you don't have that appeal. And of course, you'll lose 100 million per year from the Champions League from simply being there in the TV rights. That's what's happened to Arsenal. That's what could happen to Spurs. That's what could happen to Chelsea, and we know how critical money is for Chelsea with the amount of players they have, etc., etc. And if you don't finish in the Champions League spot and you aren't able to play Champions League, I should say, this is going to hurt your club. And I think it will take a long time to recover. I think it'll take a lot of luck to recover, because the only way that you can recover is actually by winning the league, and you can't do that unless you have good players. I know Leicester, but you're not Leicester. I know it's hard, but it's true. We could see Liverpool now take dominance, depending on if Jurgen Klopp stays. We could see Liverpool now take dominance for the next at least 2 years. There's no one challenging them in the next 2 years if you're banned from Champions League. And we could see that extend as their team just gets better and better and better, and more players hit their absolute peak. And those players are eventually replaced by players coming into their peak. So what does this mean? What is the point of this video besides me explaining what other articles are explaining? I wanted to make a mention of a couple of things before I wrap up this video. The first thing I want to say is, Manchester City players who won the title, you don't deserve to be punished. The Manchester City coaches and coaching backroom staff, you don't deserve to be punished for what has happened. I'm a strong believer that the financial backings of the club is run by the owners, as it is in any other business, because football is a business and clubs are part of that business. You should not be punished. You should not have your title stripped. You should not have your players taken away from that glory, because absolutely they deserve it. You can't buy the Premier League. Well, maybe you can, but you can't actually buy a Premier League trophy. No matter what financial fair play restrictions you break, you need to perform for 38 games a season across a 9-month period, and they did twice. I don't care what anyone says. That's fact. They did. They won. They earned their titles by playing as the best team in the country. But in saying that, I do think that an extremely sincere apology needs to be released. And I think you need to expect a whole bunch of chants coming your way every time that team plays away from home about being cheaters. It's coming. those players might be considered as cheaters. The managers might be considered as cheaters, and I don't think that's right. I mean, factually, it's probably not correct. It's most likely not correct at all. But that's just what you're going to have to put up with, and that's the fault of the owners. In saying that, the second thing I wanted to say is, and I wanted to just lead into this, and this could be a discussion at this point that goes on for years about corruption in football. Corruption in football is such a prominent thing. It's how most of our clubs that are deemed as big clubs sort of rose to the top. It's the pumping in of money, and some of the things that clubs get away with, particularly PSG, Manchester City in the past, Chelsea up until this season. It's not allowed that clubs get away with it because they can afford to just prolong bans or reduce bans or just outweigh that of UEFA or other regulators of the sport. And it's an issue because Manchester City could very well get their ban completely uplifted, or they could see their ban pushed back, or they could see their ban reduced, which means that the players that are currently in their peak this season and next season, and maybe even the season after, can stay in the Champions League while this is being fought in court, and they can keep their players, and essentially they have time to invest in younger players potentially that can come up. They have time to invest in youth. I mean, imagine if this is pushed back 2 years or even 1 year, and they get the chance to develop their young players. Or they get the chance to bring in someone while there's no punishment that's officially over the top of their heads. This level of corruption where this club was able to do this for 4 years, and it only took someone to hack into emails. Keep that in mind. I haven't mentioned this yet, but keep in mind it took Rui Pinto, I think that's his name. It took this guy to hack into 70 clubs or whatever it is, all the big clubs' emails and football leaks, whatever it's called, and reveal this information that then from there, from an illegal thing that's put this guy now Rui Pinto in jail, to then have this guy be the one that instigates this investigation just shows what clubs are most definitely getting away with. I have no doubts. There will be clubs out there that are doing things worse or on par as Manchester City are, inflating themselves, probably even Real Madrid, Barcelona even, PSG, without a doubt. There is no way that those clubs aren't pumping in illegal amounts of money or doing illegal action, because, I mean, they've been caught out before and not punished because they can get away with it. And it's a shame, because it's a massive shame, because for example, I live in Australia, right, where there's a salary cap in the NRL, so that's rugby league if you've heard of it. And what this means is that every club essentially has the same amount of money to spend, unless they're cheating, which some people have been caught out to, which some clubs have been caught out to do, and they've been punished very accordingly. But it means that each team going into the season has the chance to be smarter recruiters than the next club, and they have a chance of being in the top half, or being in the top four, or winning the minor premiership, and then going on to perform well in the major premiership in the grand finals and things like that. That doesn't happen in football, because football is a worldwide commodity, and unless is a worldwide market, and unless every club in the world went to a system like that, with a salary cap and with transfer caps or a set amount of money to spend, you'll see clubs eventually over many years, maybe in a decade or two, become more even. But you can't, because if only England does it, then Spain can easily say, hey, come over here, we're happy to pay you £400,000 a week, you can play here. And who's going to come to the Premier League when there's a salary cap? I took a lot of that, by the way, from Spencer FC, from his IMO video that was released a day ago or whenever it was. So go and check him out. I'll link both True Geordie and Spencer in the description. So this means, to summarise, Manchester City have been caught cheating financially. Financial steroids. They have been punished with a 2-year ban from Champions League, Europa League, etc. And they've also been fined €30 million. Manchester City, however, are a bigger commodity, are a bigger financial source than the people who accuse them. And there is no reason why Manchester City and their lawyers can't burst through that of the of UEFA. The only way Manchester City, from this, we've learned that Manchester City are not the only club doing this, because we know other clubs have gotten away with this. Chelsea, Manchester City in previous times, PSG, AC Milan, that's just to name a few. They have all been proven to get away with this because they are bigger and financially more capable than that of UEFA. Then what this leads into now is my talks on corruption in football. And corruption in football is a massive thing, and as to why we have such big clubs and big disparities in clubs with eons of money being pumped into these clubs, and a lot of it illegal. I mean, look at Manchester City. I mean, look at the training facilities. Look at the players they produce now with these youth facilities. Look at the level of players they brought in. Boom, they got their owner, and on deadline day they're signing Robinho and 100 million for Kaká. Like, that's not fair, is it? Really, it's not. So it's a shame that football is a corrupt industry. It is, without a doubt. That's why the World Cup is in Qatar. But that's another day. That's another talk for another day. What I want you to take away from this video is I want you to feel for the players of Manchester City who won the 2 league titles in 2012 and 2014, and the coaches who achieved that, because they had nothing to do with this financial injection. That's illegal. This illegal financial injection. They didn't. They performed for 38 games. They won the league fairly. They did. Whether you like it or not, it's true. What I do want you to also feel for is the clubs that missed out because Manchester City spent more, which is illegal. Clubs like Liverpool, clubs like Man United, clubs like Arsenal, clubs like Chelsea, who might have missed out on league titles by finishing second within those times. And even into now, because that influence of spending that excess money in those 4 years would feed into now. Don't forget, De Bruyne, who was critical in those 198 points across 2 seasons, was bought during that 2016 period when illegal actions were occurring. So I want you to feel for the players that got relegated and have had their careers go downhill since the time that Manchester City, when performing illegal actions financially, played against them. And I want you to feel for the players that missed out and might never ever win a Premier League again because Manchester City were cheating. I want you to be mad at Manchester City as a business and not a football club, because personally I'm quite livid that this is a thing that's happening, that they've been cheating to get their way to the top. But I respect the players without a trace of doubt. Aguero, Balotelli in that season, Vincent Kompany in that season. In 2014, I respect again Aguero. I respect the players they brought in. I respect the players and how they performed. But I would rather you be mad at the business running, because that's not a player's thing. That's not football. That's business. That's the people, the rich people that buy into those clubs. I want you to be mad at that. I want you to because I see it in YouTube comment sections. I see it on Instagram posts. I see it on Snapchat. I see it on Facebook. I see it on meme pages, which, don't forget, all of these things have an influence on the human mind. Whenever you see someone saying, screw Manchester City, screw this, remember, this is about the actions of businessmen doing illegal things, not the players on the pitch. The businessmen don't come to Sergio Aguero and Vincent Kompany and say, hey, we're going to spend more money here. Don't tell anyone. And we're going to win a league. That's not what happens. That's not. Manchester City won the league twice because they deserved it, and so did the coaching staff, and so did the players. I want you to be mad. There's people out there that can run these companies and get away with this. I want you to be mad that Manchester City will probably have this ban pushed back, reduced, or even not even occur at all, because they can afford to, and because someone else can't afford to, even though there's evidence there. That's what I want you to be mad at. I don't want you to be mad at Manchester City fans. They don't deserve this. This is a heartbreaking time for Manchester City fans because all they can think of now is, yeah, we won the league, but we were cheating. Yeah, we deserved it. The players deserved it, but the club didn't. Yes, that was our first league title, our first Premier League title, but did we deserve it? Is the Martin Tyler Aguero moment in 2012, with Balotelli getting his only assist in the last 350,000 years, is that now all for nothing? Or if it's not all for nothing, how much is it really worth? Is it only worth 50% of that? Why are my memories, if I'm a Manchester City fan, I'm mad that my memories are being tainted. That's horrible for a club to go through. Because even no matter what happens now, you're going to be called cheaters. You fans are going to cop it in stadiums. And I, as an impartial observer, as I always say, I feel bad. Because you didn't bring this upon your club. The players didn't bring this upon the club. Rich, greedy people who are looking for an easier way to get to the top and just make themselves richer, who don't care about the fans, who don't care about the players or the club, really, it's for self-gain, have screwed you over. You deserve to be mad if you're a Manchester City fan or anybody else that faced Manchester City and were wrong done. I understand. You're allowed to. If you're not a Man City fan, I would suggest, for the sake of football and trying to move together and trying to beat this corruption, don't hold this against Manchester City fans. Yes, whatever. Give them flack for being fake winners of the league, maybe. But it's not their fault. It's not the team's fault. It's the club's fault. And there is a difference between team and the club. The club is a business. The team is what plays on the pitch. Now, this has been a risky video to make because I'm not sure of the reaction that I'll get. I'm not sure the amount of editing I'll do in this video. Obviously, I'm not the clearest with my words when it's not scripted, but I think the point gets across that Manchester City deserve to be punished, but the players and the fans don't. And this is only just a branch on the tree that is the corruption of football. And even though we have a beautiful game to watch on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays even, there is a massive problem in our game. And it can't really be addressed because there is actually too much corruption to come over the top of that. And it sucks in that way. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to fix out a salary cap issue in our lifetimes. But we got to try. We have to get together as fans and try and do these things and try and advocate for these things. But until then, this has been Football Fans, where the fans come for everything football. As you can tell, this is everything football. I would like to apologise for the commentary of PSG versus Dortmund not happening this morning. Had some technical issues, but I will fix that in the time coming. For now, thank you very much for listening and staying. If you stayed to the end, I very much appreciate it. If you would like to see more videos in this style with no script and just me more passionately talking about things, then please leave a comment, send me a DM on Instagram. Potentially, I have a channel that I'll link, a page that I'll link down below. Subscribe if you're new around here. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. Let me know why. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I very much appreciate your effort. Let me know what you think down below. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you, and see you later.